Good evening. Welcome to my channel, Fleischmann Röver Rocco HO. I started this channel to share with you on my rediscovery of HO scale modeling railroads. If you have read my channel description, then you probably know that I once upon a time had a Fleischmann HO scale when I was over in Germany when I was a kid. And until Christmas 2019, I had long forgotten about the railroading stuff, the model trains. And then my friend from Tennessee, from Clarksville, sent me that starter package. And then came in early 2020 the coronavirus thing, and we were not really going anywhere. And I started to scour on eBay to find all of the things we didn't have back then. This was, I'm talking back from like 1974 until 1985, in that 11-year span until I was about 18, 19 years old. By that time, I had other interests, and work came into the picture, and education and that sort of stuff. So I spent the time, and I got myself, after I got that starter set, I looked at eBay. I'm an eBayer, and I love eBay. Can find a lot of things there, and I'm usually the kind of guy who buys for parts only, not working in a lot of cases, or I buy new old stock. In between is not so much my cup of tea. I think that's a waste of money. And one of the first things I actually did get after I got the starter kit was the Fleischmann catalog. Let me just show you this from 79, 80. So this would have come out late summer 1979. I started with the electric part of the model railroading in 1978 after I turned 11. And until 1978, I had a little, what do you call it, the wind-up mechanism type locomotive from Fleischmann, that starter set 1000. And I had only a small layout there, probably maybe 4 or 5 feet long, 1.5 feet wide, with an oval on it, for that little train to go around, a little plastic mountain, and 1 or 2 houses. I had started building the follow homes houses here. This is that is another catalog I got. I got those two 7980. Actually, I started before then. I started getting the Follow and Fleischmann catalogs probably 1976 on 77, when I was 9 and 10 years old, because my best friend in school, we were in grammar school back then, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. We went to kindergarten actually together, so I knew him that long. And his dad had a Märklin layout. He had started that in the 1950s when he was young. His dad was young. And so they really didn't build that much. I would say it was probably 7 feet wide, so maybe 8 foot, and probably good to 4 feet deep. And they would set that up only around Christmas time. So they would bring it out of the basement. That was all packed up, and they would bring it upstairs. So we were playing with his setup, with his dad's setup, basically, since this was already built, so we could just run the trains. Plus, he had the follow cars, the ones with the remote control on the track system there, going around. And that was all set up, so his dad would bring it up in early December, and it would stay until the end of January. So that's why I really didn't get into model railroading with my own stuff, because of my friend. We spent every afternoon together after, the school was out. At that time, we went home at noon because my mother and his mother and all my friends' mothers, they were all homemakers. There was no one working back then. All the men worked. My father worked, but not the women. So we had lunch at home. They would cook. And then I would go do my homework. And then when he was done with his homework, I would go to him. And then we would play together on his train set. And then I had another friend in grade school, in grammar school. And I would go over to his house and play on his Märklin. And the reason why I got Fleischmann was because my grandfather had given me that Fleischmann 1000 starter kit with that wind-up locomotive, because my older two cousins who lived in northern Germany, they had already a Fleischmann system. And I didn't know that to the extent of what they had, but they were sent off at the same time to boarding school. My aunt got tired of them, of their shenanigans, and they sent them off to boarding school. My aunt and my uncle, they had a bookstore in Uelzen, which is south of Hamburg and north of Hanover, if you're pretty much in the middle there. And so they were busy running the bookstore, with stationery supplies and everything else. And anyway, when I got my train system, then in 78, I went to a layout of about, I would say, good 7 feet, 6.5 feet by 3 feet, 3.5 feet, somewhere around there. And I had 2 tracks, basically all built with the sets you see here in the catalog. This was one of the reasons why I got the catalog, and I have to find it. It's always the same thing. Let me see, where did they have the kits here? Yeah, basically this here. This was the electric starter kit I got, even though I had the tracks already. And then I went with the expansion kits, which are here on these here. So I started getting into this layout here, what you see here on the bottom. I hope you can see it. And so you can see you're starting out with the circle, then you go with the oval, then comes the yard, and then you have the outer oval going, and then you can connect it, and then they have the rotary table, which I didn't get, and the 3-way switch, which I did get. So my layout looked like this, but it was a little bit larger because I had additional track. So this is basically how this whole thing started. And then this was in the fall, late summer, I would say 1978. And I set this up, and I didn't have to move it. It was in my room. I had enough room in my room to do it. And then for that Christmas, no, it was actually the next year. For Christmas, I got all these extra kits so I could lay out the full track, which I had done together, and I got a few more locomotives. And then it was in early 79 when my aunt sent me a huge box. And what they did is they had taken down the train system for my 2 cousins, the Fleischmann. And I got tons of tracks and locomotives and this, that, and the other, and cars and this, that, and the other thing. It was a pretty big box, what they had accumulated. And since they were in boarding school and they were already teenagers, they were no longer interested in this. So that's kind of on how that started. And then I, went through the fellow houses. This is why I got the fellow catalog here. And I got the train station. I had the, let me see where they are. This one here, the B111. This one here was the train station I had. That was a pretty nice one, a pretty big one. And then I had various homes, these little homes they had here. Let me see where they put them. These ones here. You see these here, the common single family homes. I had probably every other one. They weren't very expensive. They were easy to build. And then I got the booklet on how to do this, you know, so you cut out the mask out of dark, you know, thicker paper, and you cut out only certain windows when you illuminate it, so you don't have everything, the light shining through the sides of the house, and you don't have every window illuminated, because usually at night it's in a house, in a regular house, not all lights are on. So I got into this, and then styrofoam, working with styrofoam to make lakes and mountains, and I got the follow clay kind of component where you can then form that over the styrofoam. You make the rough structure and that sort of stuff. This came out of this catalog, and like I said, this is the book actually they have advertised here in the back. It was called Modellbau leicht gemacht. That means modeling made easy, or model railroads, diorama kind of thing. And they had all the tricks in there on how you work with water and how you use the glue or solvent to poke holes into styrofoam and all of the stuff. So this is just to give you an idea that I have been at this for a long time. This was also the starting point with Fisher Technic, which got me into electronic engineering. And at the same time, oops, excuse me, I have a magazine here. This is something, this was called ELO, and this was published in December 1979. That's right. They had this here, what they called Traumfahrpult, and they had also this publishing house here. The publisher had also issued a book with all sorts of electronic circuits for model railroads. And one of the things they had in here in this magazine back in those days was printed circuit instructions. That means you had your pictures here of what this would look like it. And then they had the circuit board layout, so you could make your own circuit boards. And that's what I ended up doing. I studied these magazines. My aunt got me the book, which they had for the, I still have the book. I got a copy of it, but I forgot to bring this out now. I have the book. In the next video, I will show you this book, but this is basically what started the whole thing. So I was about 11 or 12 years old when this came out, and I built this because the Traumfahrpult, this was your dream regulator, basically, or you know, speed regulator. And they had one for the AC systems and one for the DC systems. And this was December 79, so this would have been in the next issue. Or was it no, it was the next issue. January 1980. That's when they had the one for the DC. And that's the one I actually ended up building. And we had an electronic supply store in Stuttgart, because that's where I'm from. I grew up in the suburbs. And I went there and I got the ferric chloride. They sold it in a crystalline form in these yellow balls in a bag, like 500 grams or 1 kilogram. And you would mix that with hot water, and then you transfer those circuits over. They had a spray which would clear up the paper, and this is a photographic process. The circuit boards have a photosensitive foil on it, and you expose this to it, and then you develop it. Then you have the track pattern you need for your layout on the circuit board. And I did this at my father's friend's house, because he was also an engineer, mechanical engineer. And but he had a basement with a PVC sink, because the ferric chloride is very caustic, and it will basically destroy any type of chrome, steel, even stainless steel. It will stain stainless steel to a black color if you get this on there. So the best thing is PVC, plus everything becomes that yellow. So we did it in his basement, and we had the tray there, and we was able to set up you know, the exposure frame and the UV light for it and everything. And then the exposure usually takes about 5 minutes under regular UV light. just said you have an idea and then that you develop it in regular photographic type, developer you would use on regular negative type film, for photography. And then you wash it off and then you put it in the etching tank with the ferric chloride, and then all of the non-covered parts of the circuit board of the copper area will be etched off, and you have your tracks left, and then you have a little drill press, which I still have. It's similar to a Dremel tool. That was I forgot the name, which company made those. I had that thing with the little tiny drills, and they're like number 70 drills, number 68, 76. They're very small drills. And you drill your holes in it, you put your components on there, and you solder it. That's basically it. And that's how I built my first circuit board, and I did that. That must have been 1980. So by that time, I was 12 years old. And I knew at this point that this is what I wanted to do for a living, and I still do this stuff today. I'm a hardware engineer. That was kind of what set the whole stage for my entire career later on. And right from that point on, I started to design circuit boards as well. I went to the library and I got all the books they had on electronic design, no matter from beginner to expert, and I worked my way through this. So by the time I actually got to college, I knew on how to do all of the stuff. And since we had 3 electronic supply stores in Stuttgart, I was familiar with all the parts and components which were out there, from transistor integrated circuits, the early microcontrollers, and everything else. So this is just to give you an idea. So, but the system was analog. Those speed controllers, they worked of pulse width modulation, PWM, and that is not quite the same. Well, it is the using this today in the digital decoders. Basically, the motors are being pulsed, at least in the DC world. And that will get me now to the next subject here. What I want to do some videos about it is, as I got into this in 2020 and never had or have had the chance yet to do a digital decoder or a digital system to begin with, I started to research this. And what I found out is I looked at the different decoders, and there's quite a few of them out there. And the one I found, which I thought from an engineer background, is the ESU LokPilot. And that is a company in Ulm, which is probably about a 40-minute train ride from Stuttgart to Ulm. It is towards Munich on the train line to Munich. And I got one of their, this is a 4.0 I have, and I actually got another one, an ice train from Fleischmann on eBay, and that uses a 3.0. And then I looked at all the different options in terms of, base stations for this. And I said, well, I have no experience. I didn't want to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a Fleischmann system or, another one from Rocco or whoever makes them. And I said, I want to ease my way into this. So I found a freeware which runs on your laptop. And it has 2 things. It has a user interface, which you have seen in one of the videos I've posted. And it works, I think it is a Raspberry Pi, if I'm not mistaken. So what I winded up doing is I went on Amazon, and I got the Raspberry Pi, which is underneath here, this board. And I got the amplifier board, and I put the bridges in here. And you can see I have the USB port here, and I have a reset button on here. And we will get into this in detail. And it has a 12-volt power supply I also bought. 12 volts, 2 amps of Amazon. So this whole setup here was like $40. I got the version 4.0 for the LokPilot on sale because they had come out already with 5.0. So I spent like $20 on the decoder. So this whole thing here together came out to about $50 at the very most. That was just the level I wanted to do. And what I found out now is I was correct. This is basically all you need. This thing here is amazing what this can do with the software. I will explain this in detail of how this actually works with a laptop. And I showed you this on the Blue E10 where I put this LokPilot in, and I think that is on one of my first videos. I have narrated these videos because I only took them as I got the merchandise in the trains and everything else which came in from eBay. So I would have some recollection of what I actually bought and what I have and how it worked, because I'm in between homes right now, and the market already started to take off, in 2020, with the cost of buying a house. The houses got smaller and smaller for more and more money, and I want a big basement or a big attic, and I haven't been able to find this in the price range I was looking for. So I bought everything because I figured that in time the eBay stuff is going to be more expensive. I will have to spend more time. And interestingly, there wasn't much competition there. There's also a lot of Fleischmann stuff here available in the United States that seem to have been very popular at one time, especially the older stuff, because Sears, I believe, had all this Fleischmann stuff in their catalog at one point, say like in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. So there's still, and I think there were a couple other places which carried Fleischmann. I think Hobby Lobby was one of them. So anyway, this here is as crude as this may look like it, but this is an ideal beginner system to start out with. So I'm going to stay with the LokPilots, with these here. And I think the 4.0 does everything I want to do. So if I can find 10, 20 of them surplus for $10, I'm probably going to go ahead and buy the whole lot up and install it, because I got like a total of 30 locomotives now altogether between the different trains, from Rocco, the V600 or the 601, and then Fleischmann, the ICE. I got 2 different ICE versions, and I got the S-Bahn and everything else. And I'm going to set that up first, and then I'm going to migrate into the American models. We're going to have a double-themed layout. So we have the European or the German thing with Fleischmann and all of this stuff. And then we're going to have on the other layout side the American theme, where we're going to do like the West and then maybe some Pennsylvania stuff in there. And, around the Great Lakes region up there. That would be interesting to do with some, Buckman or, whatever, Lionel, whatever we're going to get there. I want to get the better trains, and there's a lot of stuff out there. A lot of it is nice. Some of it is good quality. Some of it is junk, especially now since they're having everything made over in China. I think the Chinese doing a fairly good job. But everything I got now is all Fleischmann stuff and Rocco. Rocco was made in Austria. Röver was made in Stuttgart. Faller is close by from where I grew up. There, about 50 miles down south, 60 miles south towards the Switzerland border in the Black Forest. And Fleischmann was in Nuremberg, and that was all made in Germany. And I also bought some Pico stuff. East Germany, which I never had back then, which I was aware of that they had it. And I was able to get some really good models, Pico models, which are East German time frames, 1970s, 1980s, before the wall came down. So that was still made in East Germany when it was the communist East Germany. I wanted to throw this in. I have not gotten any Brava locomotives or Tricks, for that matter, or Lilliput. I have only Röver, primarily Rocco, Fleischmann, and some Pico stuff. And that was actually pretty good for East Germany, because everyone said with the communists, they didn't have good stuff. But some of the locomotives I got, which they have with their regular rolling stock they had over there. That's pretty impressive. Now, one of my videos I had shared earlier here on my channel is actually, this is something I wanted to share for tonight, and then we're going to conclude this, is the Trans-Europe Express, the TEE Rheingold. And the Rheingold originated sometimes in the late 50s, early 60s, and the theme was this blue color with the cream. That's why you see this, the TEE Rheingold. They had the humpback dining car, and they had the observation car. And this was the electric version of the V600-601, which was the Trans-Europe Express, but they had a diesel engine on each end. So they were diesel electric. And the Rheingold was the actual electric version of this, usually with between 8 to 11 cars, you know, for a whole consist. They had the large, what do you call them? The regular cars, you know, where you sit like in an airplane, and then they had the compartment cars. I personally prefer compartment cars where you have 3 seats facing each other, because a lot of times there's not a lot of people traveling, so you can get a compartment to yourself. And then the other thing is, the last time I took a train in general was in 1991 when I left for the United States from Germany. I had to take the Lufthansa Express from Stuttgart main train station to Frankfurt Airport. And during those years, they actually had a cook, a real cook in the dining car. So anything you ordered in the dining car was prepared fresh, and the food was usually good, especially on the Trans-Europe Express, the TEE, or the Intercity Express. They just called it the IC. That was the primary, travel, the express travel, basically. And they had very good food there. Now, the most difficult locomotive to get is the early 1960s Rheingold, and you can see this, it has the dark blue and it has a nice cream color. And this is the E10, I have to hold it in the light. This is the E10 1312. E10 1312, I don't know if you can see it. It doesn't zoom too well. Well, I will have videos about these locomotives. And then, unfortunately, somehow, Fleischmann changed those in the late 60s. And you can see this. They are still blue, but it is not the same blue on the bottom. And the cream has changed to a white. And those were now the E10 250. So these are the later versions. I got 2 of those in almost mint for next to nothing. Like $30, $40 each. And then the successor to this became the E110 352. And that's when they went to the turquoise and cream color. And this is when that became the Intercity. And this is now 70s. Now, when you hold the locomotive from the 70s and you hold the one from the early 60s, there's quite a difference in weight in them. The plastic is about exactly the same between the two. So you can see this from the front. I will do a real video where I have full light and everything on there. This is like a little teaser so you can see what we will be talking about it. But the colors were completely off. And the 250, the E10 250, is the least desirable version of those for the Rheingold, So I have one actual Rheingold. I have the Rheingold also in red, which was the Rheinpfeil, which went from Munich to Stuttgart, and that's where they used the red beige color when that first started in the late 50s. Then on to Frankfurt, I believe, in Cologne, where the Rheingold went down to Zurich, to Switzerland. That was around on the Rhine River. They went along there. So the blue cream was going down to Zurich from Cologne, and they were both originating, I think, in Holland, but I'm not 100% sure about that. And the red cream started in Munich via Stuttgart, going to Frankfurt and then Cologne. That was Rheinfeil, was red cream, and Rheingold was the blue, this nice blue color, you know, and the cream. So the cars I have actually, they match this blue here, what you see here. And it is a really nice dark blue. And interesting is that I got the humpback dining car from Trix. It's brand new. It was AC, which meant I had to change the wheels out. I had to buy an extra set of wheels with the insulated wheel for DC, which I did. And that has exactly the same color as this locomotive, even though they're over 50 years apart in the time of manufacturing. And I have the early Fleischmann, early 1960s cars for the Rheingold, and I have the observation car with the same blue from Röver, because they made the observation cars. Fleischmann never made the observation car or the dining car for the Rheingold. They just had the regular passenger cars. So we got basically the whole train. I got, I think, 11 cars with the dining car and the observation car all together. So I have one full complete set. I also have a complete set of the TEE Rheinfeil, except that I don't have the observation car. I need to get another Röver red cream observation car for the Rheinfeil. But this gives you an idea, and then I have 4 different ice trains from Fleischmann. We can talk about it. So right now is what I want to show you in these videos too, is on how to maintain the locomotives correctly, how to clean the wheels so you have a perfect contact, and the intricate details, so to speak, on on Fleischmann locomotives, on how you keep them tuned so they run nicely. They're great runners when they're maintained well. The interesting thing is that motor, that round motor Fleischmann started to use, I believe, in the mid to late 60s, is really one of the best motors because it gives you a lot of torque and it consumes very low amperage, low current, compared to other locomotives with regular motors like the Rocco motor. The Rocco motors almost consume 4 times to 5 times as much current, where you're looking at 1 amp versus 200 to 300 milliamps on the Fleischmann locomotives. But one thing you will need is these here. And I got a whole bag of it. These are the little gears, and they're making them now out of brass. And I got 30 of them because Fleischmann has a minimum order. This is missing. Yeah, that's brass with 12 gears. So that's the ones they have, what they had at the moment. They will fit. So some locomotives may run, if they needed a 16, they may run a little bit slower on a 12, but they will work on all the, even on the oldest ones. And the old original gears were cast metal. And that's why they wear out. The shaft is polished, chrome-plated, and they will wear out. That cast material starts to become brittle. It deteriorates from internal, corrosion basically over decades. And it is worse when a locomotive was kept like in humid environment, humid condition and heat. And so I ordered 30 of them. They're not very expensive. I think they're like $2 or $3 a piece. And like I said, this Fleischmann has a minimum order on there. I also bought all the different couplers. So I can go with the older style, with the newer style, from Fleischmann to Märklin to the American style, the interconnects. So I can actually adjust this on every one of my locomotives. And the other thing is, what you also need a whole bunch of them are the little metal bands. These are like, I will show this in the videos here. Those ones you need to get quite a few because they're the ones who keep the couplers straight. And then I can show you which coupler actually works with what locomotive and how they changed over time. We're probably just going to have one video about this. I have 2 more channels. One is just about political stuff and that sort of thing. And then my other main channel is really where it is actually my business channel, but I winded up fixing my Mercedes-Benz I got in 1989. And I got over 200 videos on there, and I have over 1,000 followers on that channel on how to fix the late 80s V8 engines and everything what comes with the W126s. But this channel here, we will deal with this stuff. As we go along, and if I buy a house or when I buy a house where I can set up my railroad, my model railroad, then we're going to start getting into the American trains. I started out with the stuff I'm familiar with just to get reacquainted with all the ins and outs what comes with model railroads, whether it's track. I decided I go with brass. I'm used to brass. I haven't used the newer nickel, whatever that is, tracks they're using now. I have various ways of cleaning this. One of the best cleaning agents to clean brass is aircraft contact cleaner. I will show you this. With that stuff, you just spray a little bit on a rag and you wipe that over. You take everything. That's going to get your tracks sparkling clean like you've never seen before. And you don't have to do this very often. Plus, it preserves the tracks, the metal, because it is a contact cleaner, and also it puts a coating on there, conductive coating, which will prevent new dust and everything else from actually sitting on there. And it will make much better contact with your wheels. So I have very little problems on my tracks. I was lucky and I got a huge lot of like 1,000 one of the 10 inches or 12 inches straight pieces, brass, new old stock from some hobby company which went out of business in California. They're originally factory packed in a box of 300 in a box. So I got 3 boxes of 900 of them. And then I bought a whole bunch of, other things like switches and stuff like this. I got a whole box full just with switches. Some of them electrified, some of them aren't. And so I have quite a starting point here in terms of track material. I would just have to set up the layout and then go at it. Then I have to, a lot of people, they're trying to figure out whether to solder their, tracks together or how to maintain connectivity between, especially on a larger layout. What I usually do is I use little tiny wires and I wire them on both sides. I solder them on so you can see them on the inside of the track. And I go underneath it when I lay the track and I solder them on the other side with a 40 or 60 watt solder iron. And then I use the cleaner to get the flux off, because you will have to flux it. And that has worked pretty well, and it's hardly noticeable. You won't be able to see it because it is black wire. And then I usually use glue. I use water, wood glue mixed down with water, and I spray that in between the tracks. And then I put the gravel on there, the artificial gravel basically. And then the whole wiring stuff completely disappears and you can't see any of it. And I can take it apart without cutting it. And I won't have to worry about it, that the solder connection actually breaks, because solder is too soft by itself to actually use it to solder 2 joints or two rails together and have a lasting contact. They will break if you have enough traffic going over it. But I think that's it for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love if you would subscribe. Then I can keep you updated. I'm always interested in questions. If you have a question about, especially as they pertain to Fleischmann or Rocco, that's really where I know most about it. And the electronics parts of it, please feel free and ask him in the comment section. I will be happy to answer that as far as I can. And it would be nice if you like the videos, if you like it, and ring the bell. And with that, you have a great evening.